I'm under the gun with Queen 5 offsuit and he is a few seats to my left, so I can't just fold this and let him try and take down the pot. I raise it on up to $300. In hindsight, it's a little smaller than it should be. It folds to him and he puts in the 3-bet to $1,000. Action folds back to me, and this is the beauty of the stand-up game. You've got guys opening under the gun and calling 3-bets with Queen 5 offsuit. I make the call and we see a flop of Queen 6-5, top and bottom pair. Oh my god, I love the stand-up game. What's up everyone, my name is Gary Blackwood, also known as GazzyB123, and welcome to this week's vlog. We're playing 25, 50, 100 in Texas. Big boy game with Doug, Polk and the boys. It was really a lot of fun to play it on stream, and I gotta tell you, editing a vlog that's been on YouTube is a million times easier than the traditional way of taking the camera in and record it and stuff like that. Without naming any names, if only there was a particular stream out there that would let me play regularly, I'd really be very grateful. So yeah, on to today's session. We're playing 25, 50, 100, lots of big pots, lots of crazy action. Let's check it out. It's been a long time since I've last played on stream, and it is a little daunting at first returning to it, but at the end of the day it is just poker. So I settle in nicely and focus on playing my game as best I can, and also laughing at as many of Doug's jokes as I can in the hope of getting a raise. On to our first hand of the day. Josh has opened in the hijack and I look down at King Queen of Diamonds on the button. Calling here is definitely fine, but I decide to 3-bet this time. I make it 450 to go. He makes the call and we're off to our first flop of the day. Queen 4 deuce with 2 clubs, pretty good for our hand and for our range. So when Josh checks it on over to me, I think I'm just betting everything here for 1/3, which is what I do, and Josh makes the call. Off to a turn and it's the 5 of clubs. Not ideal seeing another club, but I doubt he makes many straights or 2 pairs here. So when he checks, I decide to bet again. This time $1,200 is my wager, with the intention of checking back almost all the rivers. Josh calls again and we get a bricky 9 on the river. Josh checks a 3rd time. I check back like I had planned and he tells me that he's got it. He turns over Ace-7 of clubs for the nuts. Yes, Josh, you do have it. Happy enough with how I played that one. Let's put it behind us and keep focused. Not long later, Ryan opens under the gun to $300. It folds round to me in the hundreds, and I look down at Ace-King. I'm going to flat this hand once in a while versus an under the gun open, but mainly 3-betting it, which is what I decide to do here, making it $1,300 to go. Ryan makes a call and we're heads up to the flop with around $2,700 in there. Great flop for us, it's ace high, ace-10, 8 with 2 spades. I've played with Ryan once before and he's a very solid, very loose player, so I know he's going to have a lot of hands like ace-queen, ace-jack, more flush draws than most. Basically a lot of hands that can connect with this board. Now I'd normally go 1/3 on this board, but I decide to size up just a little bit so that if he calls, the SPR is 1 on the turn and I can just shove on bricks. Sure enough, he does make the call, the turn is a brick and I do jam. He's got a lot of hands that are going to be able to call us here. He's also got some hands that are going to fold, and unfortunately for us, he's got Queen Jack off, which isn't good enough for him to call our $5,000 shove, and he makes the fold. It would have been nice for him to have Ace Queen there, but I'm still dragging in my first pot of the day, which is never a bad thing. I'm not involved in this next hand, but it is a pretty sick one, so I thought I'd include it in the vlog. Doug has opened in the hijack to 250 with Ace-7 offsuit. This is a little loose, Doug. You should head on over to upswingpoker.com and get your hands on their pre-flop charts. Slicer is in the big blind with Ace-King suited and makes it $1,200 to go. Pierre then looks down at pocket 10s in the straddle and puts in the cold 4-bet to $2,700. Action is back on Slicer and he rips it in for $16,000. Pierre thinks for a little while and makes the call. And these guys are running at once for a pot worth $32,000. What absolute sickos these guys are.
$32,000 one time. Here it comes, Rick. A big flip. And an ace right there in the middle. Pierre's going to need to spike a 10.
Twice.
Doesn't do it.
Pierre's going to send 16,000 over to Slicer.
16.2. Don't forget the 200 soldiers that also were lost in that battle.
Also want to give a quick shout out to Slick Rick and Skull Mike, absolute dream team in the booth. Love these guys and what they're doing at the lodge. If you're watching, boys, keep up the good work. Next up, the action falls round to Doug. He's in the middle blind and he decides to limp. I look down at ace-9 offsuit. I'm really not sure what kind of range that Doug is going to be limping here, but I feel like my ace-9 is going to be ahead a decent amount, so I decide to raise it on up to $400. Doug makes a call and we go to a flop ace-king 3 with 2 clubs. Pretty good board for my range, so when Doug checks, I bet 1/3 pot. Doug isn't going anywhere just yet, and he makes the call. Off to the turn, it's the 7 of clubs. Clubs are hot today, you guys. Doug checks, and I decide to just check this one back. To a river, it's the deuce of diamonds, and Doug isn't checking again. He stabs here for $1,000. Not a great spot for us, but I've got top pair, so calling can never be bad. I make the call, and sure enough, Doug has one of the very few bluffs that he can have here. He turns over Jack 10 of spades, and I'm dragging in yet another nice pot. Another huge pot coming up now, one again that I'm not overly involved in, but it is absolutely massive, so I wanted to share it with you guys. I raise on the button to $250 with Jack 8 offsuit. Ryan then makes it 700 to go in the small blind with Ace 9 suited. Certainly a fine hand to 3-bet, but a little small from him size-wise. Yuchan then puts in the cold 4-bet to $2,000 with Ace Jack offsuit. Absolutely no respect for my button raise from either of these guys. I fold, Ryan calls, and they go heads up to Ace 9-4 with 2 diamonds. Something tells me Ryan's going to have a good day today. Yuchan bets 1,400 and Ryan gets to work straight away. He pops it on up to $3,700. Yuchan isn't going anywhere just yet. He makes the call, a 9-ball corner pocket for Ryan on the turn. He makes a full house and keeps betting, this time firing out $4,400. Yuchan calls again, complete brick on the river, and Ryan unloads the clip for $13,000. Yuchan tanks for a long time before landing on call and gets shown the full house, losing a pot worth almost $50,000. These pots are fucking huge. I think we might have finally made it to the big leagues. Here it is, guys, the biggest pot I have ever played in my 32 years on this planet. So we're playing the stand-up game. For those of you that are unfamiliar, basically everyone stands up at the beginning of the game, and when you win a pot, you get to sit down. The last player standing at the end has to pay a bounty to all the other players at the table. Today's bounty was $300, so if you're the last one standing, it's going to cost you 2.4k, which is pretty chunky. It's a great game, it creates lots of action and lots of meta between the players. So we're down to the final 2 players standing, both myself and Yuchan. I'm under the gun with Queen 5 offsuit, and he is a few seats to my left, so I can't just fold this and let him try and take down the pot. I raise it on up to $300. In hindsight, it's a little smaller than it should be. It folds to him and he puts in the 3-bet to $1,000. Action falls back to me, and this is the beauty of the stand-up game. You've got guys opening under the gun and calling 3-bets with Queen 5 offsuit. I make the call and we see a flop of Queen 6-5, top and bottom pair. Oh my god, I love the stand-up game. Yuchan bets $700, and if this was Queen 5 deuce rainbow, I'd be more inclined to just call. But this board is hella wet, and my opponent has lots of draws here. And when you factor in the levels of the stand-up game, I might be perceived to be raising light here, and therefore he might find some crazy 3-bet all-in shove with no equity. So when you factor all that in, I pop it on up to $2,400. My opponent thinks for a few seconds, and then he says the 3 words that I have been longing to hear. No, not I love you. He says I'm all in. I snap call, I turn over my hand, and he's got 6-4 of spades. God, I love the stand-up game. I low-key begged to run it twice, but he says that he wants to go once.
Just once is good.
No sweat. Only 1-6 remains. 20,000 in the middle.
Brick. Would have loved to have seen that on the turn, I'm sure. But
yeah, that was clearly how it should have gone.
First board's going to go to Gary, and he gets to sit down.
And that's it. They only ran it once.
Oh, that's right. They only ran it one time.
Fortunately, it runs out clean, and I am dragging in a pot worth over $20,000. This is slightly bigger than the previous biggest pot that I had played in my life, and I also win an extra $300 for winning the stand-up game. Alright! At this point, I am up around $11,000 for the day, and things are going really well. Next up, I get a little sloppy though and raise 10-5 suited from the small blind. Versus 2 nits, this is of course completely fine, but Ryan plays very loose, and Yuchan ain't no nit either, so I think this is just unnecessary. Both players make the call, and we go 3 ways to King 6-3. Not a terrible flop for my range. I have some backdoor draws, and I can make a lot of ace-high type hands fold, so I bet here for 1/3 pot. Ryan makes the call, Yuchan folds, and while we do turn the flush draw, I feel like we have virtually no fold equity here, so I check, hoping to see a free river. Unfortunately, Ryan takes a stab here, and I don't think we can call with just the 10 high flush draw, so I sigh, and I fold. Next up is a bit of a weird hand, so Pierre opens to 250 in early position. I'm in the small blind and look down at King Jack of Hearts and put in the re-raise. It falls back around to Pierre and he makes the call. Heads up to the flop now, ace 5 deuce, all spades. Really not a great flop for our hand and not particularly great for our range either, so I decide to check. Pierre checks back and we see a turn. It's the queen of clubs, not a bad one, picking up the straight draw. Betting here is of course fine, but I didn't want to bet the turn and get called by something like pocket eights with a spade and then being completely lost on the river. So my plan was to check the turn and block bet on non-spade rivers, repping a hand like ace 10, pocket kings, something like that. It does go check check on the turn and the 10 of hearts just slides on in there to give us the straight. I bet 75% pot, trying to get a crying call from something, but Pierre only has a pair of threes and he lets it go. Next up, the stand-up game is back on, as well as a round of $200 straddles, and Doug sticks on the straddle to $400. For the tiniest of moments, I thought about sticking on the 800, but I knew my mum was watching and I didn't want to give her a heart attack, so I decided against it, regretting that immediately when I looked down at ace 10 of spades. Still though, I bring it in for a raise to $1,000. I never thought I'd see the day where I was playing a game where the open would be to 1k, but there you go. It folds to Pierre and he makes it $4,000 out the big blind, back on me, and I really wasn't sure what to do here. I know he's been pretty aggro pre-flop all day, but I think shoving here is a bit of a punt and I don't think we can call in these positions, so I sigh and just let it go. Classic Pierre, he slams down queen 9 suited on his back before taking a seat. Nice answer. Just a couple of hands later, Yu Chan has opened it in early position to $500. Remember, the 200 straddle is still on. I'm in the 100 and I call with 10-9 of clubs. We're heads up to the flop. It's King Jack 4 with 2 clubs. Really nice flop for us. We've got the straight draw and the flush draw. I check, and when Yu Chan c-bets, I decide that I'm mainly going to call this hand and use my queen 9 of clubs and my queen 10 of clubs as higher frequency raises. 7 of spades on the turn. We've got outs for days now, and it goes check check. I'm a little worried I might have too many outs, but the 8 of clubs slides on in there on the river. I make the straight and the flush. I decide not to get trappy here and I go for an overbet, betting $2,700. Spoiler alert, he's actually rivered 2 pair, so he can't get away from this one. He makes the call and another pretty chunky pot is coming my way. Next up, I'm in the cutoff with ace 10 of hearts and make it 300 to go. Ryan calls on the button and Yu Chan puts in the squeeze to $1,500. I make the call, Ryan folds his jack 9 offsuit and we are heads up to the flop. What a sick flop it is, 5-4-3 with 2 hearts. Big draw for us here. Yu Chan decides to bet and he uses a small size, betting $1,100. I decided that my range doesn't want to play any raises here versus this small size, and I just call. The turn is an offsuit queen. Yu Chan fires again, this time for $3,500. I like my flop strategy, but this is where I think I make a mistake and I decide to just call. If I'm not playing any raises on the flop, then I've got sets, 2 pairs and straights here that are now going to want to shove on this turn sometimes, so my range can definitely support a jam and my nut flush draws will be in there to balance those strong hands that I have. A little disappointed in myself in hindsight, but I do just make the call and we're going to a river with a huge draw and over 12k in the middle. We don't get there, it's an offsuit 5 and Yu Chan checks. I had already made up my mind that if he does check, I was checking back, and the reason for this is that I've got a lot of non-nut flush draws that can bluff instead of this hand. So a hand like King Jack of Hearts, King 10 of Hearts, 10-9 of Hearts. Basically having the Ace of Hearts isn't great here because it blocks a lot of his check folds. Not only does it block hands like Ace King of Hearts, Ace Jack of Hearts, Ace 10 of Hearts, but hands like Ace King with the Ace of Hearts, which he would be intending to bluff on flush rivers. So I decide that having the Ace of Hearts is really bad and check back. My opponent sheepishly rolls over Ace King, which unfortunately for us is going to be good here, and he drags in this huge 12k pot with just Ace High. Next up is one of the sickest pots that I have ever played in my life. I had initially planned to explain my thought process throughout the hand, but to be honest, I think it's better to just say that I have been absolutely owned in this hand. So Doug opens the pocket 4s to 250. I 3-bet the ace queen off to 800s. It folds round to Pierre, who then called 4-bets to 2500. He's got ace 5 suited. It folds back round to me, and instead of just folding, I decide to try and out Pierre by putting in the 5-bet to $5,600. This hand is already insane. It's not often we get to 5-bet non-all-in, and it's not often we're doing it as a stone cold bluff. He tanks for a little while and eventually 6-bet shoves all in with just ace-5 suited. I of course smile and snapfold and have to suffer the indignation of him turning over the 5 of diamonds. The whole table absolutely loved it, myself included. This is absolute ownage, but you gotta respect the heart that's been shown here. It really is an incredible play. On to the very last hand of the night, and I'm a little soured by those last 2 pots that I've just lost, kind of taking the shine off of what's been a really good day so far. If only I'd rivered a flush, and if only Pierre had folded to my 5-bet, but alas, I'm still up for the day, still enjoying myself. It folds round to me in the small blind here, and I raise it on up with Queen 9 offsuit. Folds to Yuchan in the straddle, and he makes the call. Heads up to our last flop of the day, Jack 9-8 with 2 spades. Not a brilliant flop for us, but certainly not terrible either. I decide to check, and Yuchan takes a stab here for $500. I'm not going anywhere just yet, and I make the call. Pretty good turn for us. It's an offsuit jack. It puts a little roof over our pair of 9s. I check again, and Yuchan bets again, this time firing out $1,100. Nothing I can do, I make the call once more, and we get an offsuit king on the river. Kind of meaningless card as my opponent shouldn't have too much king x, and we also block queen 10 as well as king queen, so I check ready to absolutely snap any bet, but Yuchan gives it up. He's got 7 deuce of diamonds for a bit of a stone cold bluff. He knuckles it back, and after the drama of the last 3 hands, I end up booking a nice win for the day, up $6,140 after that last pot. Could have been a lot better, but I'm happy with how I played for the most part in a very tough lineup, and that's all that matters. That's all from me for this week, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to click that sub button. I'm trying to beat Brado into 1 million subs, and we're about 997,000 away, so we're getting there. Until next time, take it easy. Fucking nailed it. 10 shots, nailed it.